Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, right.
Hey guys, welcome to a special Friday edition of Talking Truck Show.
An early one, too.
Yes, usually we do Talking Trucks on Thursday afternoons, but we've all been traveling, so we have to do this today.
That's right. And some special stuff's been going down, including this man going over and driving the Gladiator.
Yes, and this show is mostly about the Gladiator, but of course there's other news this week happening in this world. A few pieces of information came out about the new Ford Bronco,
Yep.
the upcoming one, and of course we're going to be taking your questions. There's several questions about the Raptor, the V8 engines, Velociraptors, and everything else.
We got a lot to cover, guys.
Yes.
So let's just get to it, huh?
Yeah, well, let's start with the headliner, which is the Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove it 2 days ago, and I cannot tell you how it drives.
He cannot tell you how it drives. He can tell me off camera how it drives, but he can't tell you how it drives.
So here's the deal. So they invite several different waves of journalists, right? So I was there on like Monday, Tuesday, and then there was Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on and so on. So they want to be fair to everybody, so everybody can talk about it at midnight tonight.
There you go. So the embargo drops at midnight
Eastern.
Eastern.
So 10 o'clock Mountain Time, 9 o'clock p.m. on the West Coast. And also, something we cannot say is the price, the official price of the Gladiator until that time, and also its fuel economy. But we had a lot of questions come in, and like I've built like a section that we'll also publish to TFLtruck.com of all types of questions about Gladiator. So keep asking the questions in the chat room as well.
Yeah, except for MPG, driving impressions, and price.
Yes. So what is Gladiator? Gladiator is basically they're calling it as an all-new truck, which it is because they've modified the frame heavily.
They have, and they've also changed the rear axle to a truck axle.
Yeah, so the way it works is, so there's a JL Wrangler, the new Wrangler 4-door. The Gladiator frame is, the wheelbase is 19 inches longer. And because of that, the frame is completely redesigned. So even the front rails, they said they changed a little bit. The back rails, of course, are changed completely. It has a 5-link suspension system for the rear axle. It's a solid axle, of course. And they told me at the event that the rear control arms and the suspension system are actually some of the carryover parts from a Ram 1500.
That's right. I think part of the reason why some of that exists is because we're talking about a pickup truck. It's not just an off-road vehicle.
No, and it has huge, well, for a midsize truck, payload and towing numbers. If you look at the Wrangler towing, you know, it's rated to tow about 3,500 pounds.
Right.
So that's a whole different animal. The Gladiator is rated at the sport version at 7,650 pounds and 1,600 pounds of payload. But you guys knew all that, right?
Question for you,
Yes.
which is not on there, is that maximum towing with the manual or automatic transmission?
That's a really good question. So you have to build a special version of the Gladiator Sport in order to be able to tow.
Okay.
And so you have to do a few things. I believe you do have to have a automatic.
So that's the
You
8
do
speed.
have to have the maximum towing package that they call. Every Gladiator comes with a hitch, but not every Gladiator comes with additional cooling, cooling within the engine.
Which is part of the tow package?
Yes, maximum towing package. So you have to order that, and then you have to get the Rubicon axle.
Oh,
So you put Rubicon axles on your Sport, which are 1 inch wider track and 410 gear ratio, and then off you go. You can tow
410 standard front and rear, I believe, on all the trucks, though, right?
on the Rubicons.
On the Rubicons.
Yes. So here's the way it goes. If you get, so there's 4 levels of the Gladiator. There is a Sport S, and they come with, all of them come with Dana 44 axles, 3rd generation axles, thicker tube wall, about 10 millimeters. This is bigger than the Wrangler, bigger thickness to handle the heavier loads. The Sport S adds a few more options. Then there's an Overland, which is a full luxury version of the truck. And of course the Rubicon is at the very top end.
Okay.
Hey, Andre, what are we going to show these guys at the end of the stream, too?
Oh, there's a special video clip that I brought with me. And this is, they had, you know how they usually have only high-end trucks at the events?
Yeah.
But they had one base model. It was red. It had steel rims, steel wheels, painted black, and it was a 6-speed manual. And I got it into some mud.
Very cool. So that would be considered, even though we can't announce price, that would be the entry level vehicle. Am I correct?
Absolutely, soft top, folding soft top.
That's what I would be in the market.
And you know what else it had?
Manual windows?
Yeah.
Front and rear?
Yes.
Whoa.
Can you guys believe it? 2020, brand new vehicle with crank windows. That was pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. Actually, for some of you guys out there, some of you prefer that because the idea of everything electrical is a little unappetizing. So imagine you're upside down, your battery's gone, the ability to be able to unroll the windows simply using a hand crank. Yeah, that's not such a bad thing. Except my wife would be pissed.
So Danny Entrim had a question here in the chat room. What about the Eco Diesel? So the Gladiator is launching with a 3.6 liter V6, gas engine only. And they keep saying in 2020, which is next year, the Eco Diesel 3 liter is coming to the Gladiator truck with an 8-speed automatic only. That's the only combination you'll be able to have. And the Eco Diesel is also coming to the Wrangler. So that's interesting.
Yes, it is. Now, that should do a few things. That should make it a much better tow vehicle. That should give it a much larger range, and it also should give it better MPG. But obviously, nothing's been officially announced.
Yeah, and how about we take a quick break for a sponsor? One of our friends at AutoStop Eliminator, supports this show and supports our truck channel. So we always like to mention them. It's a device for Ford and Chevrolet GM vehicles. If you don't want always to keep turning off your auto stop on your truck or car, check them out, AutoStop Eliminator. They have a solution for that.
That's cool. And so that completely eliminates it until you...
Well, you can turn it off for as long as you want. You can keep shutting off your vehicle and
it won't reactivate.
And it won't reactivate if you get this solution.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's about that. By the way, the Gladiator does have auto start-stop on their V6, and there's a button on the dash that disables it.
Now, before you go on, someone asked me recently about the 4-cylinder turbo. Would that be an option?
Nope.
As far as I know, they're not going to be putting that into the truck anytime soon.
And I didn't get a good answer as to why. So V6 is the only way to go, 285 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque. That's the rating. Somebody else asked me, why not put a V6 tune from the Ram 1500? Right, when you get a new 1500, the horsepower and torque ratings on that engine are a little higher.
Yeah, they are.
Why not do this here? I also wasn't able to get a good answer.
Yeah, no, but we can assume a few things, which is when they were building the truck, they came up with a number that they preferred. Keep in mind that this is a pickup truck that is now part of CAFE numbers for FCA, right?
Yeah, so it's important for emissions, like you said, for fuel economy, also maybe just the way they test the vehicle, right? As soon as you introduce a new rating, you have to do a bunch of retests, right?
Not only that, but you have to have that officially counted by somebody and an adjudicator of some sort, and that can be expensive.
So, do you know the crawl ratios and RTI scores? Jeep did not publish the RTI scores on the Gladiator, and I have those numbers here.
651.
You're close, dude. So RTI is the Ram Travel Index, measures suspension flex, right? Like a Tacoma has like a 410 rating on that scale. 1,000 is the best. On the Rubicon, as soon as you unlock the front sway bar, 623.
623.
You were close, dude. That's huge. I mean, when you compare it to the Ranger, the Colorado, the Tacoma, this flex on the Gladiator is insane.
That's almost best in class. What's the best in class would probably be a heavy duty truck like the.
It also betters the Power Wagon.
I was about to ask. So what's the Power Wagon's numbers?
I don't have it here on
But
my
it's
cheat
not as good
sheet.
as this.
It's like in the high 500 range, but this is 623, guys. That's huge. If you don't unlock the front sway bar, 590.
That's significant.
Still a really good number. High 500s. Crawl ratio is also the best in class. 8-speed gives you a 77 to 1 crawl ratio.
Yeah, but what's the manual?
84 to 1.
84 to 1. So I finally have a good reason to get. I'm sure I'm going to convince my wife. Yeah, we need the manual because I want a better crawl ratio. She'll probably look at me and say, "What?"
So somebody's asking, are the Wranglers and presumably the Gladiator good on the highway. Well, I cannot talk about the Gladiator right
Yeah, until midnight, he's not able to talk about driving impressions. However, we can say a few things about it. First of all, it has solid axles front and rear. Now, the Ranger has a solid axle in the rear, but it has independent front suspension. When they started building trucks with independent front suspensions, one of the main reasons they did that was for a better ride and better handling. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Walter is asking, how does it compare the RTI score to the JLU, so the four quickly as we move on.
Yeah, you do the Googles.
You do the Googles. So, Michael, are there other kind of questions that are coming in as we're talking here?
I like this question of how Kema Rico, he asks, Wranglers are awful on the road, he says. I know you can't talk about the Gladiator, but can you talk about this generation Wrangler and what they've done to improve its
The most recent one.
The
the
JL.
most recent Wrangler?
The JL is so much better than the JK. So much better on the road. And part of the reason why is because they've changed the architecture of the vehicle. Everything from the suspension, the frame, the components that they've used, the bushings, everything has been changed to make it a much more palatable on-road vehicle. And the whole point is this. A majority of the people who buy a Jeep Wrangler will not be taking it off-road that often. They're going to be driving it as a street vehicle. And because of that, Jeep wanted a better driving vehicle. And I can personally attest to the fact that it drives so much better than the predecessor.
I agree, and it, like you said, it had to do. They actually did new geometry
Throughout,
for the suspension system, and obviously they tuned it
They
specifically.
did. Now look, nothing's perfect, and we're still talking about a really primitive vehicle in terms of if you compare it to your average crossover SUV. But in terms of a vehicle that has straight axles, a proper frame underneath it, and everything else, it is a joy to drive by comparison.
Hey guys, I think the mic's dropped out for a second. Can you say the RTI scores for the JLU one more time?
So the JLU, I just Googled it. I don't have an official source from Jeep, but there's a secondary source that says the Wrangler four-door score is a 693. So that's higher than what Jeep publishes the Gladiator at, which is 623. So obviously it has to do with the wheelbase.
Yeah.
Because the wheelbase is
Much-
part of that
much-
calculation.
It's much 19 inches shorter on the regular Jeep.
Yeah.
So,
So still in the 600, as soon as you get into the 600 score, we tested a half-ton trucks this year with a Gold Winch Award.
That's right.
We all went out and actually got a 20-degree ramp, and we measured the trucks. Our best truck was like at 440. So being in the 600 range is really good.
That's impressive.
Yes.
Can you guys also talk about, okay, so what did they keep from the Wrangler Unlimited and what have they changed? Can you talk about like the main differences between the two? Just
Yeah.
to give an idea.
Yeah, and there was a question here about weight savings. What did Jeep do, or if anything, to kind of maintain, the curb weight of the truck? And yes, so designer Mark Allen says, if you take the rear door forward, they're all carryover parts. We're talking about aluminum doors that save weight, aluminum fenders, aluminum hood, all the same part numbers, right? You can still fold your windshield on the Gladiator truck. You can still remove your doors. You could still, all those parts are shared, but behind the rear door, that's where everything changes. It's a little bit actually stretched. The actual cabin is a little stretched, so you get more legroom in the back when you compare the Wrangler four-door to the Gladiator. And of course, the bed in the back, all steel bed. Which is important because people are wondering about this.
Yeah, I was actually a little surprised that they did that. I thought they'd go composite or they'd go partially aluminum or something like that. So
And the tailgate is aluminum.
the tailgate is aluminum.
So they did do. They were mindful of obviously weight savings. The frame is high strength steel, which is not only stiff but also relatively lightweight.
Yep.
So that's keep going, Michael. If there's anything else, I have some more stuff going on here
you
too.
keep going for a minute. I'll find another question for you.
The big question was what tire size spare can you fit underneath? So what Jeep is doing now, the Wranglers, they're mounted on the back gate, right?
Right.
Now the tire is underneath the bed.
It's right behind you.
Excellent.
Oh yeah.
That's a good shot.
And you could actually see there is like a heat shield. You know, the exhaust pipe comes down over the axle, and there's a little heat shield between where the tire sits and where the exhaust pipe comes out.
Right.
And 35, some Jeep guys say 35 can fit. Some other sources said you can go a little bit taller because a lot of guys like to mount their Jeeps, right?
That's true.
We haven't been able to verify that, but we know that 35 would fit.
Now I do know that, and it's not off the record. It's just that there are some upfitters out there that have already started building a swing tailgate where you can mount a tire on the very back of the vehicle, and that should be hitting SEMA. I would imagine this October you'll be seeing quite a few of those, including a split tailgate style that opens midway and has the tire on one side and then the rest of the opening on the other for easy access.
Yeah, somebody was asking us whether the Ram tailgate, the barn doors, will transfer to the Gladiator. Well, Jeep is not saying anything about this, officially from them.
Right.
Aftermarket, hell yeah.
Oh.
Right. And I've seen actually like ZR2s running around with those bumpers in the rear.
Yeah.
With the tire carriers, which looks really good, and it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. A lot of the reason why some people think it's a great idea to put a tire on the back as opposed to underneath is you have better clearance underneath, but also you have extra space. There's room down there to put in perhaps a large drawer, a cabinet of some sort, or even a spare gas tank, although I don't believe that's legal in most states.
Yes, but the thing about, what else like other manufacturers do, like the ZR2, they can mount spare tire inside the bed,
Right.
Like racing style. But then your bed becomes useless.
Yeah, and then why
Right.
bother, right?
So hanging it out back makes it cool and also frees up all the space, which is really, really sweet.
But the problem is with the swing tailgate style, you have to, if you have a large piece of lumber you're putting in there and you want to put the tailgate down, that means you have to swing the tire out to the side. That's not necessarily illegal, but it could be something that would encumber your driving.
Yep.
Andre, really quick, can you tell everybody once again when you'll be able to tell them about the embargoed information? So when can they know pricing? When can they know fuel economy? And when can they know, what's the other one?
And
What's the pricing and fuel and driving impressions?
Yeah. So the date for all that information is midnight or 12:01 Eastern time tonight. So that's Eastern time. So 10 p.m. here in Mountain Time, 9 p.m. West Coast time, Pacific. So it's just a few hours away. Sorry, we couldn't do a midnight show. I wanted to, but we couldn't.
We could wear our jammies and come out here with little flashlights and tell you all about it, but no.
But guys, this information will be on TFLtruck.com on the dot, and then early tomorrow morning on Saturday, we're publishing a comparison video to TFL Truck. And Jeep provided competitive vehicles. Ooh, we got some money in the chat. Thank you, Kirk189.
Thank you, Kirk.
Kirk says $20. Big fan of TFL. Really looking forward to the Gladiator videos. Planning to get one for my next work truck.
Ooh, we got something else to tell you on top of that. Easter Jeep Safari is happening just a few weeks down the road. I believe we're about 2.5 weeks away. When that happens, we are expecting a ton of Gladiators. Stuff going on off-road, aftermarket components, Jeep performance products, Mopar products. We're going to be driving prototypes, you name it, and that's going to be happening real soon, so stay tuned for that as well.
And after Easter Jeep Safari in late April, we should have, if everything falls into place, a Gladiator here at our headquarters.
Yes!
So we'll be able to do, our trail runs here in Colorado, maybe MPG testing, maybe iGauntlet testing.
Maybe even a little bit of snow.
You guys have asked for it, so we're trying to make it happen really soon.
Yeah, we're really grinding on Jeep about that one.
Yes.
Andre, if people want to support us like our friend
Kirk?
Like our friend Kirk, how can they do that?
In Kirk, I'll add you to our hood because $5 gets you on our board, on our hood.
Yeah, we
Here.
write your name on the hood.
Yep, $10. A bumper sticker, car or truck. $25, you get a patch. Or $50, you can get a hat also signed by us. Email us at ask@tfltruck.com. And if you donate and get one of these items, we'll send it to you. Just send us a shipping address. We also have another partner, Paisley's Jerky. And we always eat it on the road, but sometimes not.
Are you going to eat it on the air?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I've been threatened not to touch too many of these because we actually need a few packets to show you guys. They're really good, so I have had a hard time saying no to them. including this one here.
Paisleys.com. They're
Can you toss me a piece of jerky? Just,
Here, hold still.
yeah, okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yep. Oh, Jesus.
I may have thrown that a little too hard, guys.
Nathan, you can't throw it across the whole studio.
It's all right. It hit the Subaru. It's fine.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, so
Guys.
Paisley's. No, seriously, they're fantastic.
Paisleys.com. They're based in Utah, which is just next door to us in Colorado.
Grass-fed cattle.
Yes, grass-fed beef. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, I got it.
You got it?
I did.
You're like a cat.
Thank you.
Reflexes.
Yeah, I am a cat-like man.
So
let's continue.
Juan Catalina says Rubicon Gladiator will cost about $75,000 loaded. Pricing information, like I said, is coming out in a few hours. What is it? 1 o'clock now, in about 9 hours, 8.5 hours from now. So we'll get you full price.
Stay tuned on that. But with that being said, guys, anything that's a Jeep Wrangler or above is expensive. I mean, that's the bottom line. We all know that. It's a sad part of society, but they can't build them cheaper because
Well,
I don't know why.
it's a supply and demand.
Yeah,
So
they can put a price tag. You guys are going to buy it. They're going to sell it for that price
So
tag.
look at the current Wrangler, right? In 2018, they sold in last year they sold almost 250,000
a
trucks.
frickin' ton of them.
So and they're priced the way they're priced, right?
Right.
So if there's demand, if people want them, manufacturers will sell them.
There are so many people out there who've bought Wranglers for $45,000, $55,000, and that's not that unusual. That's the crazy part of it. So, yes, assuming that things are going to be expensive, of course they're going to be expensive. But once again, very important to remember, one of the best things about the Jeep Wrangler, and most likely about the Gladiator, they're customizable. They are aftermarket friendly, meaning you don't necessarily have to buy the most expensive one to turn it into something you really want. And I personally find that very, very comforting. So keep that in mind.
So before we get to the Bronco news and some other news,
Yeah.
You hit on a point, right? People love, everybody wants something affordable, right?
Sure.
Not everybody has unlimited budget. And I was actually thinking about this as I was driving the new Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
How can I build my own Rubicon, right? So, and it's so close, right? Because you get a Sport, and it comes with, if you get a max towing package, you get Rubicon axles. Check it off to your list. So
Yep.
you got a basic truck with a manual transmission with crank windows. Now you have 410 gears, no lockers though,
Yeah.
right? So then you have to keep checking a few more boxes, and it gets more and more difficult in a way because now you have to get lockers. You would have to get a disconnecting front sway bar, which is an additional component, right?
Right.
And then you have to get the different transfer case because the Rubicon gets a 4-to-1 low range transfer case, and the regular Gladiator does not.
Yeah, it's
like 2.7 to 1.
2.7 or so. Yeah.
To 1. But you're so close already, right? Do you see where I'm going?
Oh, I see exactly where you're going.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what they also have? They have their anti-spin rear axle. I forgot what they called that one. That was on their lower model.
Yeah, it's technically a limited slip. Yes.
Okay. The limited slip, by the way, works really good. So
Well,
let's.
Tommy's Jeep has one.
Tommy's Jeep has
JK.
one, and we beat the crap out of that thing, and it still works.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, let's say you don't need to have a locking front diff, and you really aren't going to go seriously off-roading all the time, light route off-roading, then all of a sudden you don't really need to get those locking axles front and rear. Suddenly you're saving thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yes. Thank you. One more. Yes, Michael?
I think we should move on to Bronco news because we're getting close to the end of the show here.
Okay.
Do we want to show the mud clips now or after?
Let's show the mud clip now.
Should we show the mud clips?
Yeah.
Start it.
So I cannot say anything.
Nope, can't say a word.
But we can show you.
You could just see it.
Yep. So we're going to see the mud clips, guys. Put on your seatbelts.
Look at this. This is the base model.
Chew your beef jerky.
Move your heads out, my guy.
Is that you driving?
Yes. That's yours truly.
We got one more.
There's one more little one.
Little one. Doing some sliding, Andre. That was a short one.
So the program is near Sacramento, California,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been raining there nonstop, probably for like 4 or 5 days, and it's still raining there, I believe now. So this mud was pretty special. And there was a break in the weather just for our filming because, thank you, it was it was really nice.
Mother Nature was sweet.
Yes, but that brings up a point of tires. So there's several different tire options on the Gladiator, and so, we got some questions about it. So here, let me get
Yeah,
to it.
fire it up. I am curious about that.
So there's a Bridgestone Dueler is a tire. It's the base tire, and then the Falcon. You can also get a Falcon tire.
Now this is something new.
Yeah, so the Wrangler is running on BFGs basically.
Right.
And I actually asked Jeep how you were researching tires, what were you doing? Because tires are very important for off-road vehicles.
Sure.
And for towing.
And for towing too. And they said Falcon, so BFG was really busy. BFG is really popular. I mean, just look at everything they do with every manufacturer.
Right.
So they said they were able to find time with the Falcon Wild Peak engineers to actually develop, tire and test it specifically on the Gladiator. And there's an all-terrain tire and a mud terrain tire. So you can choose which one. Are you gonna go hardcore with mud, kind of like this? Are you gonna go more all-terrain and get their all-terrain tire? But they just said the way the timing worked out, and because Falcon came in and said, we really want to work on this, and we have the time to do it. Let's do this now. So
That was really smart of them. Getting into the Jeep game,
Yeah.
that's huge for them, and I'm sure that their company is going to benefit from that.
So yeah, and just one more thing. There's two tech features that you may have seen me show in the video earlier this week on TFL Truck, but there's crawl control on the new Jeep. It's called Select Speed. 1 to 5 miles an hour, you can make it crawl.
Yeah, but that's only with the automatic, right?
Yes, only in automatic and only in 4-low. And there's an off-road plus mode, which works both in 4-high and 4-low, and it adjusts your traction control settings and your transmission mappings. So more on that later, but because I can't talk about it. But those features are there.
The features are there. He had a chance to use them, and you'll learn all about them tonight when the embargo drops.
Yep.
Should we get on to the
Yeah,
Bronco
a
stuff?
little
We got a
Bronco
whole bunch
stuff.
of Bronco stuff,
and
actually.
Ford stuff. And you were at the Ford event this week.
That's right. Actually yesterday, I was at the Ford Escape launch. It's the 2020 Ford Escape. I can't tell you anything about that until Tuesday. So it's a
For
bit
the
of
same
an
reason, they want to make it fair, right?
Right. A lot of different reporters were there. This was in Dearborn, Michigan. So I can tell you this, that they brought out the vehicle. They gave us an opportunity to look at it, to learn about it, but not to drive it. And we only have a limited amount of information that's coming out on Tuesday, but it's enough to get things started. And trust me on this, Ford is not screwing around with this vehicle. They've sold 4 million of them since 2004. So they're really trying to push this thing. But that leads into the next thing, which is Bronco news and what some of us have called the baby Bronco, or possibly Maverick, which is another technical possible name.
Well, we don't know exactly what it would be
We
called.
don't know what its
Right.
name is yet. However, what we do know for sure is that it is going to be based on the same new platform that the Ford Escape is based on.
This is the small Bronco you're
This is
talking
the small baby Bronco. This is what Ford calls their off-road capable crossover. Basically, it's competing directly against the Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk.
So more a compact Trailhawk?
To a certain degree, yes.
Yes. So it's a compact crossover,
Yep.
so to speak, but with an off-road bias, off-road focus.
Off-road focus. And what it's doing is it's sort of cutting the difference between what's happening currently with this upcoming 2020 Ford Escape and what's happening with the upcoming Ford Bronco, which is going to be full-blown hardcore off-road. Boom.
Ralph Jacques, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. 20
Hey,
bucks. Thank you for your
Thank you.
support. He says, Andre, thank you for videos and detail during the event. I'm glad you're enjoying it because we're trying to get you the information.
We're trying to get as much information to you guys as possible. Some people are like, "Oh, I already heard about this." Well, yeah, I know, we know, guys, but we're trying to get as much out there because there's a lot of fans out there who just want every tidbit they can get. Now, continuing on with the Ford Bronco. So what we have is the baby Bronco, or whatever they're going to be calling it in the future, is right in between the Ford Escape, which is basically just a crossover with all-wheel drive. It does have terrain select, some things in there that you'll be able to play with, which we'll tell you about later. But The baby Bronco, whatever they're going to call it, is much more off-road biased. It's going to have better ground clearance. It's going to have an off-road system that's probably going to be fairly advanced, I'd imagine. But it leads up to the big story, the Ford Bronco. So, Andre, what has been going on with the Ford Bronco?
Well, we don't know a lot of official information, and
We
I
got
know
a couple things.
I know everybody's really hungry for information.
Hell yeah.
Just like people are hungry about the Gladiator, people are really hungry about the Bronco. Because it hasn't been on the market for a gazillion years.
That is correct.
So we've learned a couple of information leaks, that there will be a 2-door and a 4-door. This image is a rendering from a couple years ago.
I don't think it's going to look like that at all.
Came from the Bronco 6G forum.
It's good looking, but I don't think it's going to look like that.
So we don't know what it's going to look like. This is a rendering
We
from a
do know what the silhouette looks like.
Yes, and we have a silhouette image right here. It's very blocky, very rectangular, with the rounded wheel arch.
Rounded wheel arch, and that
Yeah.
is most definitely a tire hanging off the rear tailgate.
Yes.
And here's the thing that's really cool. We just recently learned that there will be a removable hardtop
And
doors.
Yes.
So that puts it into the
So-
Jeep Wrangler territory.
Yeah, it looks like smack dab in the middle of Jeep.
Let's be cautious about the way we say this, right?
We have learned that there is a very good chance that there will be a removable doors and a removable roof.
But this is coming from a patent application. So
That is correct.
So let's be clear. So there's a patent application, 2 of them actually, from Ford. One from like a year ago, and one from like yesterday. Both of them talking about removable doors or talking about split doors. You know, a half door option, so where you can remove the top glass portion.
And have the lower part
The
still
lower
there
part
for support.
And the previous patent that Ford filed and are working on are actually removable doors, but you can almost take the skin off of it, and in the inner structure, the strong safety cell, you can put back on.
Right.
It's
So
like a tube door almost.
you can exactly. You sort of have your own built-in tube door, which would be, frankly, revolutionary.
But Ford hasn't said this is going to be on the Bronco.
Yep. We
They're
don't
just
know for
working
sure.
on. They're working on technology for that.
These are good chances.
We have another donation. Thank you very much from James Dillman. Best automotive coverage online. Good job as always.
Thank you, James. We appreciate that.
Wow, that's really sweet.
Once again, we're trying to get everything we can to you guys as often as we can get it to you guys.
Yes. So that's, a lot of Bronco news. So the other unofficial information is that it'll be built at the same factory in Michigan as the Ranger.
That's actually official.
That's official.
That is official.
That's official.
We
So
can
it'll be
officially
built
say
in Wayne, Michigan.
Wayne, Michigan, alongside the Ford Ranger, which of course leads to speculation that it'll have a lot of the same components. Some of that has been confirmed that there will be sharing components, but they haven't been specific on what components. I'm sure we can all guess.
Yeah, and I think Ford they're fairly busy right now. So they're just launching the 2020 Explorer.
Yep.
That's coming out. That's a big vehicle.
Yeah, so is the Escape as well.
Yeah, they're
Those are-
launching the Escape. They're updating their F-150s. Within the next year, there'll be a hybrid powertrain F-150.
70% of Ford's fleet will be either updated or all new within 1 year.
So just the scheduling of this, their brains must be exploding right now.
Well,
So the timing, I'm not quite sure. What I'm getting at is, when will the Bronco make a debut? We don't know. I'm thinking a year from now.
Yeah, it may be a little bit further than that, but we should be able to see one relatively soon. I'm hoping at the next Detroit Auto Show, which is actually happening in 2020. They're sort of skipping a year and moving it over to, I believe, June.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference, and hopefully Ford is doing that because that would be really good for the show and would be really good for Ford.
Or
as
at least
well.
an event around that time.
Exactly.
Right, because a lot of manufacturers are actually unveiling stuff before a show, and then they're bringing that vehicle to the show.
Which is something else Ford has done too.
Yeah. So it may be around that time, but June of next year, which is 15 months away, maybe?
It's a little ways away. Here's something really important to keep in mind. Ford recently stopped building most of their cars, so they have dedicated themselves to becoming a truck company. And because of that, they want to win. They want to win the truck wars. And frankly speaking, they're doing some serious things to make people think about their purchases. Here's an example. The Ford Ranger, it's already starting to sell very well. It gives you class exclusive things like a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and a 10-speed automatic transmission. Nobody else does that. The Ford F-150, which recently got some of the highest scores of any half-ton truck in IIHS. That's an aluminum truck on the outside, and it gives you lots of options others don't. Ford is trying to find things that you guys want to make these vehicles better. Why am I happy about this? Because the idea that the Bronco is going to challenge the Wrangler is awesome, because that means that Jeep is going to be forced to up their game, which is good for you and me, the consumers.
Yeah, up their game and also potentially lower price.
Yes.
As soon as there's competition, everybody wins.
Hell yeah.
Well, consumers win.
Consumers win.
Yeah.
So if the Bronco
We
comes
win.
out with X amount of dollars for the Bronco, and that's well under Jeep's price or something like that, Jeep's going to have to compensate. So
Yes.
keep that in mind.
And adjust for that. And just really quickly, there is a lot of news before we wrap up. Once again, rumor that Ford will be putting a V8, a GT500 Shelby V8, not a heavy-duty V8, into their Raptor F-150.
Holy cow.
So because, and actually that rumor came, thank you Ryan for a donation of $2. Awesome.
Oh, thank you, Ryan.
I'll get to your question in 1 second. Because the TRX prototype images came out.
Yeah.
And funny enough, about the same time, there was a rumor that Ford might be putting a V8 into a Raptor. So
Which is
funny how that
brilliant.
happens.
Yeah, brilliant with Ford PR. I'm sure it wasn't Ford PR. Wink. He's asking about the IFS.
Independent front suspension,
Right.
which is very possible.
Very, very possible. There was a rumor a long time ago that Ford was looking at having a solid front axle in their Bronco, but it's beginning to
It's
look like
unlikely.
it's rather unlikely, considering that all other off-road vehicles currently being built have independent front suspensions. And remember, they do have that Torsen limited front diff on their
On the Raptor, yeah.
right? So it's entirely possible that could find its
So
way
currently
over.
the Wrangler is the only front axle in that sort of size
Solid,
class.
yeah.
Solid front axle. And the even like companies like the Mercedes G-Wagon, they've transitioned to independent front.
That's
So there is
correct.
a movement towards that in the industry. So I'm thinking the Bronco will have an IFS, but we don't know exactly. And the final, what was the final thing? So there was a V8 Raptor.
Mhm.
Somebody was asking about Velociraptors, which is a Hennessy product, which is an aftermarket product.
It's aftermarket. It's not part of Ford's portfolio.
So it's not a proper Ford product. So there's a lot of excitement here. So that's really good.
Yeah, now listen, guys, when we're done with this, don't forget we're going to come back to this video and we're going to look at your comments later on. So if you have something else to say, we will hopefully be reading those shortly.
Yes, and as always, thanks for joining. We're going to play some music and have a good weekend, too.
Have a great weekend, folks. We'll see you next time.
Nice. All right, let's see what's kind of
Sit
song.
there rocking. Come on. Rock it, dude.
Okay.
The best part is he still has the thing.